And now joining us in the studio to deliberate on the topic is a distinguished Senator Hassan Ibrahim Haldeja, representing Jigawa Northeast Senatorial District in the National Assembly. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning and thanks for having me.
And also with us is Khadija Waziri Buka Abba Ibrahim. She's a member, House of Representatives for Damaturu Gujagu, I hope I'm right, Tamu Federal Constituency in Yobe State. Thank you, madam, for coming this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, and I will also introduce our next guest, who is the Honorable Babangida Ibrahim Malun Shafi, representing Malun Shafi for Federal Constituency of Kaduna State. Katsina State, rather. Yes, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
It's good to have you.
All right, let me also introduce our guest from our Benin Network Center, Dr. Okunzwa Osaoro. Of course, he's a familiar face. He's a public affairs analyst. Dr. Osaoro, many thanks to you for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here again. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen and lady, we welcome you all to Good Morning Nigeria. Let's begin, of course, with the distinguished senator. Just prior to the election, of principal officers and all that, and the inauguration of the Ninth Assembly, there was so much, there was tension. Everybody, anticipated, certain things to go certain ways, but that didn't happen. How do you analyze, evaluate what happened?
Well, I think based on the precedents, based on the fact that we all knew what happened 4 years ago, we had a very unusual situation. It was an aberration, so to speak, in politics, whereby some arrangement, we had a minority party leading the National Assembly on both the Senate and the House of Reps. So you will agree that, we were justifiably on the defensive, and we imagined the worst and we prepared for it. And I think it was a bit of an anticlimax, like you said, when finally we came to the day in question, and everybody won by a landslide victory. I think it was a case of preparation, and I think it was also a case of the quality of the people that the party put forward for these positions. Both of them are experienced legislators. Both of them are capable legislators. And for the first time, I must commend the opposition for really putting partisan politics aside and looking at the quality. It was overwhelming, both in the Senate and the National Assembly. But like you said, there was a lot of tension because we didn't want a repeat of what happened in 2015. And so the party was always one step ahead. And this time around, we dug in and ensured that politics was played. It was, like I said, what happened was an aberration. For 4 years, we had a situation where, the majority party was just a spectator in the assembly. And, but all is well that ends well.
Yeah. You dug in to ensure that there will not be a repeat of 2015. And along that thought, let me come to Honorable Khadija Waziri Buka Abba Ibrahim. At the very beginning, as clearly stated initially, there was tension, horse trading, alliances and realliances, and of course agreements and disagreements. No, it's like a political chess game. So how was it for you? What happened, and of course what the result came to be, with of course the ruling party having the two houses led by them?
Thank you very much. Well, initially, since the campaign started for Speaker, it was labeled the joint task. The joint task included members from across party lines. We had the PDP members, we had the SDP, the AA, the YP, and various other parties come together as one to deliver a speaker that would be unbiased, that would put the country first before himself, and also disassociate himself with any other biases. So that was how we were able to produce a speaker across party lines. As you are well aware, motions for secondment was seconded by a PDP candidate for the candidature of Femi Bajabiamila, and it was a rancor-free election for speaker. So we were not really concentrating on just basically, APC being the majority party within the Green Chambers didn't mean that we didn't invite others to join us in trying to produce the most suitable speaker in the House.
All right, let's also bring in Honorable Malum Fashi here. What do you think played out?
Well, to be honest with you, I can say that the situation was the same during the 2015 presiding officer election and now. The only difference is the strategy. Because you see, what people fail to realize is that during the 2015 election, all the presiding officers were APC. They were all APC. But unfortunately, like I said, the strategy was different, and this time around, the party is more serious in advising. But it is very important to note that, you see, it is the responsibility of the members of the National Assembly to elect their leaders. The party and the external whatever is just to advise. And this time around, they did it properly, and all the members of the party, unlike in the 8th Assembly, were brought together by the party, and they were properly advised as the way forward. If you look at the outcome of the election, about 45% of PDP members voted for the APC candidate. And you found that it wasn't the same situation in the first, where the election of the APC members in the 8th Assembly was more supported by the opposition party, unlike the situation as it is now. This is to show that we're improving on the processes, and we hope we'll continue to maintain the same relationship with the other political parties on the floor, so that we achieve what we want to achieve in order to support our government.
All right.
All right, thank you. Claire, let's go to our guest from our Benin Network Center, Dr. Okonzwa Osawaru. Dr. Osawaru, you've listened to the serving National Assembly members, and I'm sure you recall vividly the event of 4 years ago when the National Assembly was inaugurated. Now, how would you view the political machinery engineered by APC this time around in ensuring that the majority produced the leadership of the National Assembly?
Well, first of all, let me congratulate our compatriots who are there with you in the studio as members of our National Assembly, the Ninth Assembly, and also congratulate the ruling party for finding the powers of persuasion to maintain party cohesion. Now, what happened 4 years ago is not altogether out of a range of possibilities. And what happened 4 years ago is also a mark that our democracy is still maturing. And what has happened recently, just 4 days ago or so, will probably remind all of us that as our democracy continuously mature, we will establish some conventions that will be beyond dispute. In the mature democracies of the world, the party that has majority in the parliament has the right, or will have earned the right, to constitute committees to take the principal officers, except that political party is making a deliberate concession to some other political parties for whatever reason, for maybe want to form coalition for a different purpose or anything. But the convention, not the law, is that the party that has majority is entitled to selecting the principal officers. So, as our democracy matures, a minority party will no longer be angling for top positions, not even by default. So I think a question of how far we have actually gone in deepening our political culture. But I congratulate the governing party, the majority party in the parliament, for being able to persuade his members now to cohere and actually establish his position as having won the right to select his principal officers, because that also has implications for how they are going to implement their party manifesto as a party in the majority in the National Assembly. So I think they have done well, but for me, it's a milestone in the development of our democracy that what happened 4 years ago, even as it remains a possibility, did not recur this time around.
All right, thank you, Dr. Osawodo. We'll return to you. Let's come back here, and this time I'm going to do the reverse. I'm starting with Honorable Hadja here with me. Dr. Osawodo talked about implications, of course, for the Ninth Assembly, talking about the leadership that has emerged. So in line with that, I'd like you to speak on the capacity and capability of the two leaders, both, the President of the Senate and the Speaker, in terms of delivering on the party manifesto.
Well, they are both men with cognate experience of the legislature. Senator Ahmed Lowell the distinguished Senate President started off first as in the House of Representatives before he progressed to the Senate, with a good track record in the House of Representatives and a good track record in the Senate as well as House Leader, before he progressed and metamorphosized into the President, the Senate President. And the same happened in the House of Representatives. Femi Gbajabiamila was a minority leader before he proceeded to be a House Leader and then metamorphosized into the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And so we are well aware that in any civilized, developed country, a House Leader with the majority in the chambers of both houses progresses to be the leader of the House or the Senate. So it's no big surprise that these two competent gentlemen have appeared to be chosen to represent our nation in the legislature.
Honorable Khadija, when we talk about experience, it's quite understandable. When we talk about character, it's a different kettle of fish. And talking about the character of these two individuals, in terms of management of humans and, of course, resources, what can you share with us concerning their individual characteristics that will eventually play out, along the line? They have 4 years to go.
Well, actually, as the distinguished senator mentioned, the party chose carefully. It didn't just choose at random. It actually looked into the characters, like you mentioned, of both individuals to assess and find out if they have good human relationships, if they can actually get on with members that they're going to lead, and if they're going to be fair across party line, since they're heading not only the candidates from the All Progressive Congress, but also from other parties as well. So they have to be fair in order to forge ahead and put unity and progress into building of the nation.
Honorable Malum Fashi, still on that, the immediate past speaker, for instance, during his speech, mentioned the issue of courage, the need for, presiding officers to have courage, to be courageous. And that speaks to the ability to stabilize the National Assembly as a first democratic institution, maintaining separation of powers. How can you evaluate this, the presiding officers that have emerged, their capacity to, maintain the status quo of the National Assembly?
Well, what I can say on this is that I see presiding officers are one amongst equal. Like in the House of Reps, we have 360 members. The presiding officers, theirs is to preside over the affairs of the House. That's why it is very important when you are composing the other leadership of the both chambers, we have to be very, very careful on the type of people that will be, I can say, elected as leaders to support the presiding officers. In the leadership position, we have about 10 people. The speaker, deputy, majority leader, majority whip, assistants, and the rest of them. And they cannot, as individuals, conclude on any issue. Okay. It is very important. That's why when you are composing committees also, you have to be very careful on who chair the committees. Because at the end of the day, whatever program, policy the government is bringing on the floor, it requires the support, it needs the support of the majority party. But why we have to be very careful? Sometimes we may have the number, but you may not have the voice. You see, what I mean is that, you see, when the opposition have more voice, then it becomes a challenge. So our ability to counter whatever issues that may be raised deliberately or otherwise by the opposition, it is very important to put our first element forward in the appointment of presiding officer, leadership, and the committees. So I believe that also as presiding officer, the issue of courage, what it means is that sometimes it's not in all cases that government may bring issues that are in the best interest of the countries. There are certain times where you find that people are not comfortable with certain policies because government is also advised by human beings, and human beings can make mistakes. So in that type of situation, what it means is that as presiding officer, you should garner the courage in drawing the attention of the government that these issues may not necessarily scale through. Sometimes if a government is introducing a policy that may face some challenges also, the presiding officer has a responsibility to look at the mood of the House, to advise the government either the timing of even presenting the policy or the need to review some aspect of the policy so that members can be lobbied to ensure that the thing passes through.
Okay, good. I'm also expecting to hear from Senator Hassan Ibrahim Hadejia that the two gentlemen are of good quality. So let's not go there now. We've had it. We want to believe you, like any other Nigerian. But what I want to ask you to speak to is the issue of political alignment. Political alignment, which of course is a game of give and take. Right, and it played out in what happened 2 days ago before these officers were elected, because of course there was cohesion between the APC and other parties, that are represented at the National Assembly. Right now, this issue of a juicy committee, that has, of course, in some cases, beclouded the right thinking pattern of members of National Assembly in the recent past, because you see, people jostle for certain committees, which of course they describe as juicy. How will these two gentlemen manage that aspect of allocating committees to certain individuals, maybe from APC or any other political party? In your opinion, what should be, their tangent in this respect?
Well, I think, first of all, the issue of, in the course of the 9th Assembly, I don't think the issue of juicy committees will be so much of an emphasis. Part of the problem that arises when it comes to this committee allocation is when you have a fractionated process leading up to the emergence of leaders. If you look at what happened 4 years ago, there was all kinds of crisis and confrontation, and so a leader has emerged. He's sleeping with one eye open. He's devoting a lot of energy to maintaining his seat, and then this issue of rewarding people with so-called GC committees comes into play. This time around, at no point in time, even when we were quoting people from the opposition to come and join us in delivering a leader, at no point in time did committees come up. We refused to negotiate. We refused to go into details because, as far as I'm concerned, for some of us that are just coming into the Senate for the first time, we don't have any overhang about juicy committees. I don't know which committees are juicy, which ones are not juicy. My impression of committees is that they're simply a mechanism for decentralizing oversight functions. And so I think what you'll see emerging is the fact that for every member that finds himself in a committee, one will be able to immediately see why that member was put there. You look at the member's CV, you look at his professional background, you look at the peculiarities of his constituency, And then you say, okay, I think we should take this man to water resources, or we should take this man to transport and so on and so on. I think essentially the new leadership has emerged in a way that they are not going to be burdened with the responsibility of trying to appease anybody. Committees are committees. If we talk about GC committees, are we going to have a situation where by the time we distribute the GC committees, then the ones that are not GC will now be left on the table, you know? So I don't think under this dispensation, the issue of what is GC and what is not GC will come up. We have a united National Assembly, both the Senate and the whatever, and like I said, there were no concessions made. It was not necessary to sit down and discuss allocation of committees, and we have an overwhelming support for the leaders. In fact, they have the additional burden of now trying to balance out, you know, across party lines. And if we continue that way, I think the over-focusing on this committee issue will be a thing of the past.
All right, thank you. Now, of course, we have Dr. Osawari there. Dr. Sawari, I'm coming over to you, and my question is, fine, everyone is applauding the outcome of, you know, what has happened at the National Assembly, and the expectation now is that there will be a cordial working relationship between the legislature and the executive. But also, people have also raised concern, you know, that with what has happened, we might run the risk of having a what they call rubber stamp National Assembly. Can you speak to that?
I hope not. I hope not. I hope not. It is a good piece of fortune that at this moment that a political party controls both the presidency and the National Assembly, at least the leadership of the National Assembly. So that should actually form a common background. You know, being members of the same political party would also suggest that they will subscribe to the items of their manifesto. So there won't be any kind of argument or bargaining in that regard. Is already given. And then the laws to back whatever proposals, measures the executive will be proposing subsequently should receive easy blessing from the National Assembly in that regard. But the National Assembly, its leadership and its members, should also remember that the National Assembly is an institution. In fact, the most significant institution in the civil space. And they have a moral and political duty to be implacable and resolute in protecting the integrity of that institution, because the very survival of our democracy depends on it. So there shouldn't be automatic room for antagonism of the executive, just for grandstanding or for position taking. But when the occasions are...
Oh dear, we lost connection there with our Benin Network Center. Okay, let me take that question to Haja here. Can we avoid a rubber stamp National Assembly?
Yes, most certainly. Because I think when you look at it, the legislature and the executive are partners in progress. They're complementing one another. They're not fighting. If the president brings a bill to the floor of the House, it will be debated accordingly, as it should be, and the question will be put up, and it will go either yes or no. So the issue of a rubber stamp is not really an issue here, because I think that the president is the type of a person that will not allow the legislature to forge ahead and go ahead with anything that comes from him without any kind of debate or any kind of disagreement or challenge. It's not going to be just because they influenced or he influenced or the party or the individuals or the APC is in majority doesn't mean that anything that might come will be rubber stamped. It will be looked into accordingly, according to the way the Constitution has laid it out, and from there it will be taken. So,
Okay, go ahead.
So the issue of rubber stamp, I think, is not. We have enough quality representation that will actually speak up, and if they feel that a motion or a bill from the executive, it doesn't go their way, or any kind of communication from the president, then they're eligible to debate that issue, and that issue will be put to the question. So I feel that we are not going to be a rubber stamp parliament.
Well, let Honorable Ibrahim Malam-Fashi also speak to that.
You see, the issue of rubber stamps comes in when there is this assumption of trying to bring something that is not in the best interest of Nigerians. You see, we are all one government, whether it is the judiciary, the executives, or the National Assembly. And we believe that whatever government is bringing forward, the first assumption is the best interest of Nigeria. But you see, there are times when certain issues are brought that are controversial. In that cases, you know, it is very important. That's why debate comes in, where each and everybody will speak on the subject matter. At the end of the day, where the debate favor the bill, automatically the yes will carry it. Where the debate is not positive, automatically the bill will go down. But you see, it is very important. If government is introducing any policy or introducing any bill that is a little bit controversial, there's a need to possibly talk to the leadership and draw their attention. This is the intention of the government. This is why they are doing this. This is why they are doing this. So that they have a clear picture of clearly what the government intends to do. And by doing so, naturally, in the parliament, you have to lobby. Even in international parliaments, you lobby. Now, the presiding officers or the leadership has a responsibility to identify some of the key senior parliamentarians and also brief them. You see, understanding a subject matter go a long way in ensuring that bill pass through or any proposal by the government pass through. So I think the issue of rubber stamp comes in when there are certain element of selfish interests, where somebody has a particular mission he wants to achieve, he wants to ensure that it's achieved. But I don't think the issue of selfish interest or rubber stamp will come in where all of us are on the same page and we're working for Nigeria and for Nigerians in the best interest of the country.
For being on the same page, that is why the concern about being a rubber stamp. But from what Haja even mentioned, you know, you have other members of people from other parties that are in the National Assembly, and there are bills that may require two-thirds majority, which of course APC does not have at the National Assembly. So the issue of rubber stamp came up because you are in a majority. Some certain bills may just be maybe overlooked. Okay, you can please just put pen on paper and let it go without debate and things like that.
Let me tell you, you see, in the parliament, there are times when no matter how good the intention is, no matter how good the bill is, the opposition, just for the sake of being in the opposition, they will try to bring it down. Either to embarrass the government or to make sure that they show that they are playing the opposition aspect, not because that the bill is not good or whatever. So there are a lot of politics on the floor of the House. That's why it is the responsibility of the leadership of the House to make sure that they carry everybody along. But how you carry everybody along, because in the leadership there are 4 positions, there are 4 oppositions. We have the minority leader, deputy minority leader, we have minority whip, deputy minority whip. So positions out of 10 are for the opposition, and they constitute part of the leadership. So if they also understood what the government is doing, or what government intends to do, I don't think we are going to have issues.
All right.
What is important is for all of us to be honest, that whatever thing we are doing is in the best interest of the country.
Thank you. I like that. Best interest, Honorable Malam-Fashi. Thank you. We are back now to Benin, where Dr. Osaro is. Dr. Osaro, we'll allow you to conclude your thoughts on the issue, whether, of course, we can have a rancor-free 9th National Assembly and not being a rubber stamp one.
The National Assembly, as I have begun to say, is a national institution and is a major player in the civil space. His role is well defined: to make laws, to conduct oversight on the activities of the executive branch of government. Those are well spread out. Now, we also know, on account of the state of our development, we mentioned that a while ago, the stage of our development of our democracy, that the National Assembly also symbolizes the democracy itself. Therefore, they have to be very conscious of that. But the very fact that the same party produced the president and the leadership of the National Assembly is a factor, a positive factor we should celebrate, because that would ordinarily mean that the content of the manifesto of the governing party will not need any further debate. Candidates have become office holders on account of that manifesto as presented to the electorate. So we expect that they should hit the ground running on that score. That should provide a very broad ground for cooperation, meaningful cooperation on behalf of Nigerians. And of course, when issues come up, issues that will threaten the independence of the National Assembly, that will threaten our democracy and all that, we expect the National Assembly to also rise as an institution and act as a curb. So it's going to be a kind of balancing act. The National Assembly should not be a rubber stamp. The National Assembly should not automatically also be an antagonist just because it wants to assert its independence. So we believe we have the right caliber of men and women in the National Assembly to actually follow the middle course in steering these extremes.
Okay, let's start with you. Sorry.
Well, I want to stay with him. You know why? We've been having little hitches, along our line of communication. So we'd like to take you on this. Because I'm not praying we should have more, but let me just ask you this, because the power to make law is accessible by bills. And passage of quality bills determines to a large extent the quality of life Nigerians who operate at different sectors would live as it concerns the economy, education, health, and what have you. Now, what would you like to see the Ninth Assembly do? What should be their focus? I wanted to set that agenda we were talking about for them. These are already serving members of the National Assembly. You are an outsider. Please, what should be their focus this time around so that we don't return to what we had 4 years ago?
Conference and confluence of people from different corners of the country, so they know what the needs of the country could be. And of course, apart from their traditional role, you have mentioned lawmaking, oversight, and so on, they know the condition of Nigerians currently. They campaign from different parts of the country. So they know. A person like the gentleman and the lady with you in the studio, they are from constituencies, they are from senatorial districts. They know what the condition of their people are. They should bring these things to the National Assembly and mesh them and have a national agenda. So that's not a thing that can be dismissed off the cuff in the course of a casual discussion. And of course, just on June 12th here, the president gave a very rousing speech, giving a very broad spectrum of national needs. I believe, for a start, if the National Assembly adopted that and then attuned their own focus over and above their traditional role and enabled the president and his agencies to pursue every aspect of that speech, ranging from security to environment and the healthcare and everything contained in that speech, I'm sure they will be very, very busy for the next 4 years. So for me, the National Assembly should be focused on what the president has said, what they have brought from their respective constituencies to the National Assembly, assess the resources we have, and know how we are going to apply the resources in addressing the concerns already raised by the president that they have brought from their respective constituencies to put Nigerians at ease, to foster their welfare. And of course, I also insist to make sure our fragile democracy is fortified, to make sure they remain implacable and resolute in making sure all our institutions are defended, irrespective of party affiliation, to keep our democratic project on course.
All right, thank you. Let's get back again to Senator Hadejia. Nigerians have already, even before the inauguration of the 9th Assembly, Nigerians are speaking out about what they expect, from the National Assembly, and their expectations are as diverse, as the people themselves. From bills that have not been passed, the PIGB, it's there, bills that will have to be represented again, and all that. So give us an insight, of the burden of the task ahead of you as the 9th National Assembly.
Well, I think expectations are very high. You heard from your segment on the man in the street. Everybody is saying now, since there's unanimity of purpose, we are all in the same party, they don't expect to see all these drawn-out battles playing along. I don't think it will be very challenging if we focus on what we are here to do. We are all National Assembly members. I'm a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Before I talk about being a representative of my constituency. So I think the focus should be on trying to make up for lost time. On the issue of what has happened in the last 8th Assembly was rather unfortunate. Just like my brother said, some people just wanted to oppose for the sake of opposing. Being in a position doesn't mean being combative or being confrontational, or every day you find yourself on the wrong side of a debate just because you are in the position. We have a unique opportunity. We have a leadership that has emerged with overwhelming support. So I think what I will hope to see is the issue of bills being rubber stamped or not. You have the same party in the executive and the National Assembly. We have an agenda, we have a manifesto. We're not going to apologize to anyone, about implementing that.
Yeah, that's what I was
agenda.
asking.
Yeah.
That I wanted you to give us an insight into what the agenda is. What are your priority areas? But let's pause you for a while, and of course bring Dr. Osawaru back on set. Dr. Osawaru, I would like for you, of course, speaking for Nigerians now. Can you give us an insight of the expectations of Nigerians from this 9th Assembly? The gap that the 8th Assembly left is considered very wide. So give us an instance of what is ahead of them.
Because we are in a democracy, we expect to live by the rule of law. And as we do that, we also foster the welfare of Nigerians, the material well-being at least. So I don't think that needs further elaboration. The executive is going to be making proposals, going to be proposing budgets and so on and so forth. The National Assembly, as the conscience, as the authority of Nigerians instead of lawmaking, should give the backing to all that. Whatever is going to make the nation become a performing nation on behalf of our citizens, that is the function of the National Assembly. They should make all the laws that will back all this, the welfare of Nigerians. So the content of the welfare of Nigerians cannot be broken down precisely at any particular point in time because they evolve. There are things we have carried over, and there are things that are emergent. The National Assembly should be alert enough to perceive these things, make necessary laws to give the backing, provide the resources for these things to be pursued. And as they do that too, to also engage in oversight to now ensure that the laws they have promulgated, the resources they have appropriated, and so on and so forth, are well utilized in favor of Nigerians. So the content will vary from time to time. For instance, there are many agitations in the country about this, about that, security, people saying they want to pursue the cause of self-determination and so on. The National Assembly is well placed to address all these issues, even the way they exist, to form a kind of national cohesion, national consensus, and so on. So the agenda for National Assembly, the National Assembly is not a thing you can specify to say A, B, and Z. Of course, the National Assembly itself must have a research unit. They must have a kind of observatory that will be able to perceive the trend in the country so that they will be able to say, this is going to happen, maybe anticipate it by making a law, or if they have a law that is already obsolete, they find a way to revise it. But what is important is national interest is always pursued, and national interest essentially means the welfare and well-being of Nigerians. So they should be very much alert, as I've said before. They should be attuned to the welfare of Nigerians from time to time. They should make sure our democracy is protected so that rule of law will continue to govern our conduct in national space, and so on and so forth. So the items will be many and varied. Some will receive priority from time to time, and it's very difficult to list all of them in the course of a discussion of this kind. But what we expect is a National Assembly that is jealous of its mandate, a National Assembly that is competent, a National Assembly that will have the welfare of Nigerians as the central focus of its agenda.
Thank you so much, Osaro there from Benin. I think a takeaway from what he said, Claire, is the issue of the fact that there are evolving challenges as society grows. So what worked yesterday may not work tomorrow, based on dynamics, of society. Well, when Osaro was speaking, we have our guest. Another guest who just joined us, and that's Senator Eta Enang, Senior Special Assistant to the President on National Assembly Matters. He was also a member of National Assembly at one time. Good morning, sir, and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for obliging me to come.
Yeah, we have actually gone deep into this conversation.
Just to say that he's not known for coming late. So you must have overslept.
Of course.
Thank you.
He may be on an oversight function, right? Okay. Now we have gone deep, really, but we want to get your view about what transpired in the build-up of the election of the chief officers of the National Assembly, that's the Senate President, of course, the House of Reps Speaker. What played out, having in mind what happened 4 years ago, of course, where the party lost in its bid, to elect members that the party has actually, chosen. So what happened?
Thank you very much, and thank you for obliging me to come now. I must say that your management knew that I had an early morning appointment, and I told them I either stop or come in the course of the program, and they said I could come in. Thank you very much. What happened was that, we have succeeded. The All Progressive Congress and the executive has succeeded in ensuring that the Senate President, Deputy President of the Senate, Speaker, and Deputy Speaker that have been chosen by the senators themselves and presented to the party and adopted by the party and presented to the executive have successfully emerged as presiding officers at that level, and we are grateful. But what happened again was that we, like I've said in one forum, the party and the government and the leadership went into our arsenal. We opened the armory. And brought out our political arsenal. And what were the arsenal? That was intellect, cohesion, appeal to the members. And of course, it was led by the general, the chairman of the party, Comrade Adams Oshomole, and commanded in the overall by the Commander-in-Chief, President Muhammadu Buhari. Of course, my friends, our legislators, our distinguished senators, they were with us on the 11th in the evening when His Excellency the President, His Excellency the Vice President, the Chairman, and all members of the all National Working Committee of the APC met with all senators-elect as they then were, and all members-elect as they then were, and all of them are here. And we agreed that given the dynamics of what played out in 2015, we can't let it happen again, because we discovered at that time that the minority party, as it were, came out and preyed on what seemed to have been what seemed to have looked like complacence, and then encouraged that there should be 2-3 candidates, and so votes will be split. And they thought that we would get that route again. And so the party, the president and vice president, and rarely, very rarely, do you have such congregation But because of the seriousness of it, and because of the trauma we went through in 2015, and 2015 to 2019, we said it can't, and because of what Nigerians went through, because of that situation, we say, the leadership said, we can't allow it to happen again to Nigerians. So it was led, and we agreed. We only presented one candidate for each position. Yes, other candidates could stand up, but all the members agreed to adopt one candidate. Every person was free, because even within the ruling party, the opposition party had candidates within the ruling party. But what again we did was that we went into the fold of the opposition minority party and also preyed on some of their members, and also had members and their votes to vote for us. Again, we came out as a party and a government. We don't have an. Not nearly all our governors, all our governors were present on the floor of the Senate and the House of Representatives. Because when you see a battle that you had fought before and it appeared simple, and you see the same kind of army that looks ragtag, don't take it that it is ragtag. It may be so prepared, more prepared, So that's how it happened, and that is how, to the glory of God, with Senator Ahmad Lawan, the most ranking member of the National Assembly, Senate and House of Representatives, he's going into his 21st year on the floor of the National Assembly.
You're not crediting opposition parties.
No, he did.
He did?
Yes, he did. He had mentioned, of course, that they went into, the opposition party.
Yes. Because even the opposition party, the PDP, agreed that they wouldn't allow the government and the people to suffer what they suffered within that period. That when they get elected to the National Assembly, they become senators of the Federal Republic and honorable members of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the party coloration ceases. But when pain comes, like we've always said, hunger, poverty, pain knows no political party. And so this is what the PDP members also among them said. You could observe that in the House of Representatives, the proposal, the nomination was made by an APC member, and the seconder was a PDP member. And so that gave an indication to Nigerians and to even the voters on the floor, to the honorable members and distinguished senators, as it were, that we are coming into a coalition government, not like a kind of coalition that we had in the Senate, where you had the Senate president being APC majority, as it then were before the defection, and the Deputy Senate President being a minority PDP, which still gave complexity in administration.
All right, Senator Enang, now everybody has applauded the outcome, but the concern now is how and whether and how that translates into delivering the mandate that Nigerians have placed on the 9 senators. And I give you an instance. For instance, in the area of appropriation, in maintaining or carrying out their internal vigilance and all that, it usually presents a sour point between the executive and the legislator. Now, can the 9th Assembly exercise its power of the purse expressly?
In maintaining vigilance in terms
yes,
of
internal. Of course, when you do your internal vigilance during appropriations, the checks and balances during appropriations. Yeah. My question is it still possible, or how can this 9th Assembly still exercise its power of the purse without having to pass appropriations expressly?
Now, the executive is never interested in saying, as I have given you, pass just like that. It is the legislature is to consider the budget and pass as thought fit, but with consultation from the executive, with the executive. Now, what we did and what we used to do, and if you're doing the same good thing, but with a non-very cooperative institution, you are still going to, even after consulting before, you are still going to have some resistance after presenting. But what we intend to do, what the executive will do, will be holding pre-budget consultation as we normally do, holding post-budget consultation as we normally do, and even in the course of the budget being defended before the committees, we normally consult. And even after the committees have passed the budget, the frame, the executive still normally consult with the different committees to make sure that all the inputs and the priority projects that are agreed, will still remain in the budget. But we had situations where there were agreements, and after agreement, pass the budget, and a question will be raised that the ministers did not appear to defend the budget. My friend and colleague, Khadija, was Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, State. And she knows that there was no situation that you had a minister not appearing without conferring with the chairman of the committee and agreeing on either a deferment or an earlier appearance. But when you have your entire budget, stocked, and you ask, what is the problem? Say, ministers did not appear. In legislative relations management, you don't go to say, oh, they are all appeared, because all you are trying to do is, how do I bring out the result? Not if I tell the truth. I'm sorry that it has to get this way, but that is what happened in the 2018 budget. So when you have a good working relationship, even if a minister does not appear, that will not be said. And that minister will be called, and it will not be made an issue. And even when a minister appears, all will be taken account of and worked expeditiously. You'll have a situation where the legislature will give timelines on the budget. We will use 1 week to do second reading. The committee will do it in 2 weeks, that is 3 weeks. We will use 1 more week to review, the leadership will use 1 more week to review what the committees have done, and then draw up the bill. After 1 week, we will pass.
What about budget padding, which has also been an issue? It was an issue in the last assembly.
I still will apologize that the legislature, when it receives a budget, it is taken, I apologize to any person who feels I shouldn't say this, but this is the correct. Because if I do not say what is the correct thing, then the public will have a wrong impression and will bring a wrong pressure on the legislature. Now, when executive proposes a budget, in ordinary legislative parlance, it is said that the budget is dead on arrival. It is taken as if it is an empty box. What is the legislature does and brings out becomes the budget if it is consensually done between the executive and the legislature. You could have a situation where, for instance, there was a project, the Enugu Airport. Now, the budget, there was an amount in the budget. Now, the budget was intended to be passed in December. That was the second year that the president said, look, we intend that we should have returned to a January-December budget year. And the budget was to be passed in December. But the budget ended up not being passed in December. It ended up being passed in May of the following year and assented to on 12th June of 2018. Now, between December 2017 and May and June 12, 2018, the budget was running. And so the money in the budget for that airport was still being spent. And so the legislature, having spent much of the money that was meant for that project, it was no more necessary for the amount that was there to be put there. So that amount was reduced, and another item agreed with, discussed, was introduced to absorb that money. So padding, with respect, I think with this legislature, that will be reduced. But I want to say that I am not very conversant with that. I'm not very conversant with that in the legislative lexicon. I think it is a new word that we're trying to give life to.
Yes, sorry, it's a new world, that just emerged as a result of actions of members of the National Assembly, what have introduced, because sometimes we begin to ask so many questions. Are the National Assembly members veering off on the tangent of lawmaking and delving into other aspects of administration that is should be left for other arms of government? Because we have had some members of the National Assembly on this program on different topics where they defended very fiercely too, if you like, that look, that I have told my constituency that I'm going to bring a borehole to them. Now, how do I do that if I do not find a way to capture it in the budget? But that's the responsibility of the, that is the argument.
Let's pause
now,
for a while.
Before we pause, I'd like him to, sorry, please, because of the trajectory, the trajectory, I want him to talk about this issue of returning us from January to December budgeting cycle, which he has mentioned, which has eluded this country since 1999. Now, if what Itainan said is correct, that there are usually consultations, between the executive and the House of Assembly, National Assembly, and all that, yet this budget is delayed, then are there discrepancies here and there? You are a first-timer. What would you like to introduce to enable us to stop that?
Well, I think, like you said, as long as there are consultations, as long as there's a free flow of information between the legislature and the executive, there shouldn't be a problem in retaining that annual budget cycle. Having said that, there's nothing sacrosanct about having a January to December budget cycle. It could be May to June, as long as we capture the essence of budgeting. What has happened, unfortunately, is that because of this very frayed relationship we have, budgets are delayed for no reason, for no apparent reason. If because you are in opposition, or because you want to punish the executive, you hold on to a budget and come up with excuses, invariably your action is also negatively impacting on your constituency. You don't cut off your nose to spite your face. In this 9th Assembly, I think part of the problem that was created, doesn't even exist. You have a situation, I'm glad my brother is here, a situation where, you say, oh, rubber stamp or no rubber stamp. I think it's very, very unusual to have an executive and the same party, and then a bill is sent to the president for assent, and he's seeing it for the first time. There's nothing that says that in the process of that bill, there shouldn't be some communication between the executive and the president, who are all in the same party, so that by the time it's sent to the president for assent, a lot of give and take has taken place, and this applies also to the budget. When you send the budget and then it's shrouded in secrecy, it's passed around for 2-3 months, and then when you return it, it doesn't look like anything that like the document you presented. It's all a result of this divergence of views and this very, very rigid opposition stance in the assembly. This time around, I don't think we're having that. Okay. We're going to, this is one of the cardinal principles of Ahmed Lawan's agenda, this budget thing. Budgeting is probably the most important responsibility of the National Assembly. Okay, and yet it is also the most abused if you look at what has happened in the last 4 years. Okay,
Senator Hadija, let's pause for a while. Gentlemen, I know Honorable Malum Fashi wants to say something, Ajia wants to say something, and Dr. Sauro would like to say something. But we'll be right back after the break. This is Good Morning Nigeria, and we're, of course, the topic is setting agenda for the 9th Assembly. We'll be right back.
The red light won't kill you. Move now. To the disobey traffic law, they cause accidents. Me, I don't talk, say, I no go dey do them again, because change begins with me. Cross the other side of the road.
I will no longer endanger my life crossing the express. Instead, I will use the bridge because change begins with me.
Oga driver, stop this bus now, won't come down. I be one carry me past where they go.
Make her they stop anyhow for road. They cause traffic wahala and accidents. So I go they stop for the right bus stop because change begins with me.
Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Let's quickly now bring in Honorable Malum Fashi. Honorable Malum Fashi, the issue of, budgeting, appropriation, is usually a very sad point, as I said earlier on, between the executive and the legislature. And if you recall, it's been a major issue, or it was a major issue in the 8th Assembly. And Nigerians are concerned how this 9th Assembly will address that, without any rancor.
Well, let me say that the fundamental problems associated with the budget has to do with so many things. Number one, by Fiscal Responsibility Act, the budget is supposed to prepare on the basis on medium-term expenditure framework. That should be the basis of preparing the budget. Now we have a situation where the MTEP and the budget are brought simultaneously. Now, if the budget and the MTEP are brought simultaneously, then what is the basis of preparing the budget? So which means if you have fundamental adjustments in the MTEP, automatically it affects the budget, all through. All through. So you see, the issue is we have to do the needful. If the Fiscal Responsibility Act provides the time period for presentation of MTEP, MTEP has to be fast and approved before the budget is prepared. But we have a situation where the MTEP and the budget will be prepared at the same time. Let me give you an example. We have a situation where for over 10 years, our exchange rate remained at 305. Why? Why should the CBN continue to insist on 305? And that 305 is never used anywhere in the course of operating our economy, only when we are doing conversion. Where government agency receive income in dollar and you want to convert it, you use 305. But any other government transaction, you don't use 305. Why? So you see, we have also a situation where there is a gap even between the MDAs and the budget office. A budget will be presented to us, MDAs will be coming to complain. So the issue is there is a gap even between the MDAs and the budget office. If you remember, there was a time when they are discussing about the issue of padding, when they are talking about issue of
How will they address it?
about two sets of budgets. If you remember, in 2016, two sets of budgets. You see, what happened was that the budget that was presented by the executive is different from the budget that was presented by the MDA to the budget office. That's why we have two versions. You invite an MDA for them to make presentation. You find that the version you have is different from the version they are presenting. And they will tell you that's what they are presenting. Number three, under normal circumstances, every MDA of government is supposed to submit quarterly budget performance reports. They don't do it. First quarter, no report. Second quarter, no report. Third quarter, no report. Our budget is mostly implemented in the last quarter. The procurement process also brings a lot of challenges. We've seen a situation where an MDA will come to you, certain amount of money is released to them, and the money is hanging.
So
they are not spending it.
Yeah, so that
and at the end of the day, they'll say it's the parliament.
Yeah, so that we can entertain, a response from other guests. How would you, as the 9th Assembly, address the gaps? That
Well, like he said, it's part of our agenda. The budget process, addressing budget process is part of our agenda. We have to thoroughly look at our budget process. Like he said, we have to do what it takes to make sure that the Nigerian people benefit from the budget. Because there are so many issues, discretionary releases, discretionary implementation, so many things are going on. So the 9th Assembly agenda is that we want to do an oversight to make sure that the right thing is done by both the executives and also within us at the committee levels.
Well,
because there are certain, like what he's saying, if you invite a minister to come and make presentation or defend a budget, if it's not available, anybody can do it. We don't have to insist that it must be a minister. As long as what we want to achieve is achieved. So those are some of the areas that we need to address.
Manufacturers, Nigerians are keenly looking forward to a change in this direction, because when it comes to blames, most Nigerians blame National Assembly mainly for delays in the passage of budget. I don't know whether Haja wants to talk on the budget again, or do I go to Benin? You want to make input on the issue of the budget or budgets, or what the National Assembly is expected to do to change the course of history of budgetary allocation and passage in this country?
Indeed, because Malumfashi raised a lot of issues. Your wife, former minister, which...
Well, the general perception, I think, of people of the legislature has to improve, because this issue of padding, as it's so called, it's a misconception, because we are the politicians from the grassroots and we know what our constituents need the most. So when a box is brought in by the executive and the legislature looks into it and sees that whatever aspect is missing that the community needs, then they add that aspect into the budget. That should not be called padding. That is advancement in or improving to what has already been presented. And I think Senator Etta Anan has already said that to improve on this aspect of the notion of padding, there is going to be a pre-budget meeting with the executive in order to outline what should be in the budget, and if anything needs to be replaced for something else the members feel their constituents need in the grassroots. We are the ones that are closest to the people from the grassroots. We are chosen by and elected by those people from the grassroots, and then we know in our constituency projects what our grassroots people need the most. So constituency projects should not be taken to be padding the budget. I think that must have come from an opposition. The word padding must have come from an opposition member.
Thank you so much. For want of time, it was not. Actually, the president himself has talked about padding. What you have said is very pertinent with respect to you knowing what the constituency needs. Yet, we have local government, we have state government that are closer to the people, more than you here in Abuja. That is the argument of some persons in this respect. So if the federal government is for the whole country, the federal government, of course, has captured the entire country. And those tiers of government also captured what happens to India. So perhaps some say you have no business adding money for your constituency. That's the argument. Now, let's go to Dr. Sawaro in Benin. Let's get your own judgment of all of this, the issue of budgetary allocation, passage of budget, and what have you.
Anywhere in the world, the budget process can be very turbulent, and it's part of the debate in National Assembly, because at that point you're allocating resources. So I don't think our situation should be different. It's part of the vitality of National Assembly for people to haggle and eventually agree on what the document should be about how national resources will be expended in the course of a particular year or a budgetary cycle. And talking about the concept of padding and so on, it's definitely a misnomer, really. I don't know how it arose, because the National Assembly is the dispenser, ultimately, of the resources. So the person who dispenses the resources couldn't be talking about, we couldn't be getting that same institution accused of padding, because the National Assembly has the powers of appropriation. After all, they make a law to back what a budget should be. And just like our lady had said, the senators and members of House of Representatives come from different parts of the country. They know what their needs are. And as a matter of fact, even those who criticize constituency projects need to look at that. Nigeria doesn't have to be a copycat replica of any other democracy. And even in some advanced democracies, senators and members of House of Assembly, members of House of Representatives, like to bring things to their home constituencies. They want to bring home the bacon. It's a form of credit claiming, not just for the value of it, but even investment in re-election. So our lawmakers are better placed to know what the needs of their people in their respective constituencies are. But that doesn't mean the limit should not be respected. That doesn't mean that should be a basis for holding the executive and thereby the whole country to ransom. It's a question of bargaining. Even in some other countries, they call it pork barreling and the rest of it. So As our democracy continues to mature, we hope so, all these things will be evened out, and the influential senators and members of House of Representatives will be able to attract projects that will enhance the welfare of their people. I think that should be normal, and it could well be a thing other people could copy from Nigeria as well, so that that neat demarcation between the National Assembly approves and the executive implements may not be that clear-cut, so long as the people benefit, and of course, so long as there's also discipline to recognize where the lines are drawn. So for me, the budget is sacrosanct as far as the powers of the National Assembly are concerned. So there shouldn't be any accusation of padding and so on and so forth. It is their powers to say the last kobo will be in the budget or the last naira will be withdrawn from the budget. So the discipline to run a democratic government, again based on the rule of law, by the time we continuously imbibe it, most of these things will be clarified. It is to be hoped.
The National Assembly may have the power of allocation, but the executive also has the power of execution because they have the authority to do that. And if what the National Assembly has done is not in consonance with what the executive has packaged, then we begin to have that issue of, look, why this one? It was not there before, because the executive is, of course, the planner and the executor of whatever law or whatever bill passed by the National Assembly. That's what politics says. But for now, Nigerians are beginning to respond to this conversation by way of tweets, and we will go straight to the tweets and have a feel of many Nigerians. Now, Law Alpha, the 9th National Assembly will produce quality oversight as usual, but more efforts should be geared towards judicious expenditure of taxpayers' money by the executive.
And this next tweet is coming from Omobolao Babs, and it says, the 9th Assembly, the executive must realize that what's called government is people. So you empower today because people made it possible. It could have been anyone else. Therefore, the interests of that same people must be paramount in the heart of both arms of government. We'd expect people-friendly legislature.
Now, Omobolao says, what we desire is akin to President Buhari's statement. We don't desire a rubber stamp 9th Assembly, but an assembly that will work in harmony with the executive and other arms and agencies of government to deliver on the electoral promises of the ruling party.
And Festus Akiboyewa, every member of the National Assembly and those in the executive branch must understand that this is the time for partnership working and not partisanship working if we must move our country forward.
All right, now, Delegate Solomon, while we advocate for an harmonious relationship between the three arms of government in Nigeria, particularly between the executive and the legislature, we recommend the importance of separation of powers in restraining the branches to ensure effectiveness in policy making.
And again, the second tweet from Jack Solomon, it says, safeguarding budget process and enhancing accountability in public budgeting. That's one. He also says that they should embark on regular capacity building on basic conflict resolution and training to improve their conflict management skills as well as their problem-solving skills.
Yeah, well, let's leave this one out. Delay again, but we'll leave that out. He has of course, given us two tweets. Now, let's go to Festus. Nigerians expect a calm 9th National Assembly as they perform their role in the functioning of our democratic government through lawmaking, scrutiny of expenditure and policies of the government. They must work hard with the executive branch to address the insecurity in our country.
All right, Kieran, I'm forced to take that third tweet from Jack Solomon because he's speaking to an issue, of course. He says, economic transformation and boosting of developmental governance must go hand in hand with the transformation of day-to-day institutional practices. This cannot be achieved if the three arms of government take-home pay, especially the legislature, is very high indeed, that it needs reduction.
Yes, we have a litany of tweets here. We're trying to see how we can manage time. Ogochukwu says the masses must be at the center of their legislative functions. People-oriented bills should not be delayed for any selfish interest.
And Mike Kanyanko tweets, the fury of elections is over. We are now in serious business. All National Assembly members must roll up their sleeves and gear for positive action. The newly elected leaders and members must see themselves as partners in progress. They must pursue people's agenda and goals.
And this law I'll fast to it is important. It said the problem lies in the state houses of assembly, where governors doctor the proceedings on the floor of the lawmakers at the expense of the will of the people whom they are representing.
All right, this tweet is coming from Terry Abdul Karim Zachary. He says, with the present leadership of the National Assembly, I believe there's going to be some level of understanding between the executive and the legislature, unlike the cat and rat relationship witnessed in the 8th Assembly. Both chambers should consider Nigeria first before their superiority.
Now, let's go to Titmus Monde York. People's driven legislations and bills should be at the center of the Assembly rather than selfish political upheavals and personal interests to remain on seat at next tenure or retire back as governor.
All right, Jimmy Martins tweets, the 9th Assembly is expected to have a good synergy with other arms of government to take Nigeria to the expectations of Nigerians as contained in the speech by President Muhammadu Buhari delivered on Democracy Day. We expect the unnecessary delayance of bills and budget to be unassociated with the 9th Assembly.
And finally, on tweets we have today, Alhaji Musa Muhammad Hadejia. We're expecting good representation of legislators by bringing good inputs or demand of their communities to enjoy the dividends of democracy. The 9th Assembly should cooperate with the other arms of government to move Nigeria to the next level. All right. Time is not on our side at this point. You know, we would have talked about the issue of oversight functions, you know, which of course is another aspect of functions of National Assembly that's received some knocks, you know, lately, you know, because of the type of oversight Nigerians believe that you carry out. But in a nutshell, let us just, in a few seconds, you know, oversight. How did you?
Like I said, for us new legislation coming in, my perception of oversight is simply part of the checks and balances that our system of democracy entails. It doesn't mean going to harass MDAs or insisting on oversighting a particular ministry because, like you mentioned earlier, it's juicy and so on and so forth. Oversight is very important because the essence of budgeting or appropriation, after passing the budget, you must also ensure that money is spent as intended. And that is all it has to do about oversight. Of course, there are additional functions where maybe as a policy, you know, if you have an agenda as a party or as a policy, there's this general oversight to ensure that, yes, that policy is implemented generally, apart from the general details.
Senator Hadejia, you're a first timer. As time goes on, you will understand the other aspects.
All right, let's quickly, yes, just before you, I'd like you to take this question. Although you're not a 7-member now, but you're a key, you know, person here. But let me begin with Honorable Malum Fashi. The issue of corruption, it's very cardinal to this administration, the fight against corruption. And of course, you know, the economic and other aspects of the security, motives and agenda. How will the 9th Assembly, or what will the 9th Assembly do to give more bites to this fight, more accountability, and of course, repose more confidence in, in the people of Nigeria in these areas?
Well, you see, every assembly needs to consolidate on the agenda of the previous assembly. You see, what we are trying to do this time around, which we have started in the 8th Assembly, was to review some of the major acts. For example, Fiscal Responsibility Act is a very important act that checkmates accountability and governance. So we had a bill. It was partly sponsored by the executives and some members on the floor. And these are some of the areas that we need to repeal our enactment of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. We're also going to look at the existing act of all those agencies that are in charge of corruption and whatever. We'll review the act and see how we can improve and make sure that their performance is effective.
Okay, Ajia, quickly, how can we, add more value to the 3 cardinal point agenda of Mr. President?
Well, as we're all aware, if we work in consonance with the 3 cardinal principles, which are the economy, insecurity, and anti-corruption, I'm sure we'll all put hands on deck and ensure that these menaces are gotten rid of once and for all. So far, progress has been made in the security sector, where all towns and villages have been liberated from Boko Haram insurgencies, especially from where I'm from. And the farmers and herdsmen issue is getting a lot of attention, which means we're getting somewhere. So the president has laid a lot of emphasis on anti-corruption and insecurity and the economy. So the parliament will and shall work in consonance with the executive to ensure that the results are achieved accordingly.
All right, Senator, round up for us. What are your expectations? Yes, the expectations
on this,
from the Ninth Assembly.
His Excellency, Mr. President, did present before the National Assembly the Proceeds of Crime Bill, and it has been passed. And it is, His Excellency, Mr. President, will soon take a decision on that. It has been transmitted. And there is also the Bill on Mutual Legal Assistance. These are all intended to give great attention to anti-corruption. But please, in concluding, let me refer to an issue he talked about, the medium-term expenditure framework, that it is normally presented at the same time with the budget. That's not correct with respect. It is normally presented before, but the legislature considers it alone. In actual fact, like he said, we ought to have presented the medium-term expenditure framework under the Fiscal Responsibility Act, when presented, should be considered and passed first, and the template used in preparing the budget. But when the executive presents the fiscal responsibility, the medium-term expenditure framework, and it lies there, and we don't have it passed, so you have to use what you submitted as the basis for preparing the budget to lay.
All right,
so, and again, the last one is that the matter he raised, that it is not, it doesn't matter whether we have a January to December or something. January to December is very necessary, because in planning, even international investors, even in construction, you have to have it January to December, so that you can.
We'll stop you there, sir. We'll stop you there, sir. You have said it all. You've said it all. The important thing here is that, he's the first time. I think by the time he gets in, he will begin to understand, the concept of what we're talking about. And I think in the issue of corruption, if you can pass a law that can have a special court to try corrupt persons to speed up, the process, it will help the nation. All right, gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for being here this morning. Senator Hassan Ibrahim Hadeja, representing Jigawa North East Senatorial District. It's our pleasure hosting you this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. We'll have more of you.
Thank you for having me.
And Honorable Khadija Waziri Buka Abba Ibrahim, member, House of Representatives for Damaturu and others. We thank you for coming. Yes. And of course, Babangida Ibrahim, Malum Fashi, will thank you, Honorable. And of course, Senator Eta Enang, Senior Special Assistant to the President, we also thank you. And Dr. Okonzua Osawaru, your comment has been very, very incisive here this morning. Thank you very much indeed for being part of our show this morning, all the way from Benin. And Claire,
All right, that's all from us today and for the week. We thank you for watching. Do join us again same time on Monday. From all of us here, the production crew.